Los Angeles, California, March 1970. The Dragon's Lair Boxing and Martial Arts Gym on Sunset Boulevard. It's Tuesday afternoon, just past 3 o'clock. The gym is nearly empty. The lunchtime crowd has already drifted out, leaving behind only echoes the steady thud of leather against heavy bags, the faint squeal of rubber soles on aging canvas, the low grunt of disciplined effort. The air is thick with sweat, worn leather and liniment, the unmistakable scent of a real fighting gym. Not the polished, air-conditioned fitness clubs that would later flood the city. This place breeds fighters. Inside the main ring, a man moves with controlled violence. His name is Tommy the Hammer Morrison, not the heavyweight who would later carry that nickname, a different Morrison. A middleweight kickboxing champion carving his name into the Southern California fight circuit. I am 28 years old, 17 professional fights, 17 wins, 14 knockouts. He stands 6'1", unusually tall for his division, with long arms built for reach and punishment. His body is sculpted by years of combat. His nose was slightly crooked. Scar tissue above both brows, a face that reads like a resume written in blood and canvas. He is skilled, extremely skilled. But skill isn't the most dangerous thing he carries. It's arrogance. Success has hardened into ego, ego into contempt. Tommy doesn't just believe he's better in the ring. He believes he's better, period. To him, people outside the fight world exist in lower tiers. Support staff, background noise, servants orbiting his greatness. And today, that arrogance is about to cost him everything. Near the gym entrance, another man works quietly. Smaller, maybe 57. Wearing faded jeans and a worn gray t-shirt. He moves a mop across the floor with calm precision, invisible, methodical. Unremarkable, at least at first glance. Yet something about him doesn't fit. His movements are too balanced, too economical. Even cleaning, he carries a kind of controlled grace. His forearms are corded with muscle. His posture relaxed but ready. His eyes are constantly observing, calculating, absorbing everything happening in the room. His name is Bruce Lee. But Tommy Morrison doesn't know that. To Tommy, the small Asian man mopping the floor is just the janitor, the help. Someone so far beneath his notice that he barely qualifies as human in Tommy's hierarchy. He's seen him all week cleaning, quiet, out of the way. Tommy assumes he's an immigrant grateful for a low-paying job. He never stops to question why a janitor moves like a fighter. Why does his presence feel controlled? Why does the air around him seem different? It never occurs to Tommy that the man holding the mop is the most dangerous person in the building. And in a few minutes, he's going to find out. Los Angeles, California, March 1970. At the Dragon's Lair Boxing and Martial Arts Gym on Sunset Boulevard, Tuesday afternoons belonged to Tommy Morrison. By 3 o'clock, the serious fighters were finishing their rounds, sweat-darkened shirts clinging to their backs, hands wrapped in gauze and tape. But Tommy stayed. He always stayed. Not because he needed the extra work, because he needed the audience. 17 professional kickboxing fights, 17 wins, 14 knockouts. In Southern California's fighting circuit, that record carried weight. Promoters returned his calls. Local sports writers mentioned his name with rising curiosity. A regional title defense loomed next month, the kind of bout that could open doors beyond Los Angeles, maybe Las Vegas, maybe even overseas. Tommy trained like a man convinced the world was already his. He hit the heavy bag with mechanical precision, jab, jab, cross, hook to the body, right uppercut. The rhythm never broke. His 6'1" frame gave him reach most middleweights envied. His shoulders rolled fluidly. His hips rotated with clean torque. When he moved, there was power in it, real, measurable power. But there was something else in the way he carried himself. When younger fighters shadowboxed nearby, he corrected them without being asked. Hands up. You're dropping your guard. Too slow on the pivot. Amateurs, he muttered once, loud enough for them to hear. They laughed nervously. No one challenged him. Eddie, his trainer, had started noticing the shift months ago. Success had changed Tommy, not outwardly at first. It was subtle, the way he stopped saying thank you when someone handed him water, the way he referred to sparring partners as bodies, the way he spoke about opponents not as athletes but obstacles. You're getting sharp, Eddie said as Tommy finished a 3-minute round, sweat dripping from his chin. I've always been sharp, Tommy replied, not looking at him. Confidence had hardened into certainty, certainty into superiority. Tommy believed he was untouchable, not just in the ring but in life. Fighting wasn't something he did. It was proof of who he was: stronger, faster, better. He treated the gym like territory. When he walked in, conversations quieted. When he stepped into the ring, people watched. He interpreted that attention as reverence. In truth, it was a caution. There were small moments that revealed the fracture beneath the champion's surface. A young fighter once asked for advice about conditioning drills. Tommy told him, "Win something first, then ask questions." Another time, he shoved a speed bag stand aside because it was in his way, sending it clattering across the floor. No apology followed. Eddie pulled him aside after that. "You're building a reputation," Eddie warned. "Good," Tommy said. "Fear's useful. That's not the kind I mean." Tommy dismissed it. Fear was currency. Respect was demanded, not earned. That was how the world worked, at least the world he understood. He saw life the way he saw the ring. Dominance established early, weakness exploited immediately. If someone showed softness, you pressed harder. And outside the fighting world, outside the ropes, he barely considered those people at all. To Tommy, there were fighters, and there was everyone else. The fighters mattered. They bled, they sacrificed, they earned their place. The rest existed on the periphery: trainers, cleaners, receptionists, spectators. Necessary maybe, but secondary. Background figures orbiting men like him. He didn't think of it as cruelty. He thought of it as an order. That Tuesday afternoon, as he shadowboxed alone in the ring, sunlight filtering through the dusty windows of the Dragon's Lair, he imagined the next month's fight. The crowd, the knockout, the applause, the interviews. He pictured headlines. He pictured national recognition. He pictured himself unstoppable. What he didn't picture, what never entered his calculations, was humiliation. He had never been truly tested outside a rulebook. Never faced something that didn't fit into weight classes and timed rounds. He believed strength was size. Power was visible. Authority was declared. And that belief, that rigid, unexamined belief, was the foundation of his empire. An empire built not just on victories, but on pride. And pride, when left unchecked, always demands a reckoning. Los Angeles, March 1970. For the past week, a small, quiet man had been coming and going from the Dragon's Lair at different hours of the day. Sometimes in the morning, when the sunlight slanted softly through the front windows and the older members stretched stiff joints before work. Sometimes in the late evening, when serious fighters stayed after closing to put in extra rounds. And sometimes, like this Tuesday afternoon when the gym was nearly empty. He never announced himself, never drew attention, never corrected anyone. He simply observed. His name was Bruce Lee. To most of the gym's members, he was just another face in the background. A small Asian man in faded jeans and a gray t-shirt. Clean sneakers. No entourage. No theatrics. No attempt to be noticed. What they didn't know was that Bruce wasn't there to train. He was evaluating the space. The Dragon's Lair had recently come under financial strain. The owner, an old acquaintance, had quietly mentioned the possibility of selling. Bruce had expressed interest not out of sentiment, but vision. He saw potential where others saw worn canvas and aging equipment. He imagined transforming it into something disciplined, purpose-driven, a true academy of martial arts philosophy, not just brute force. But Bruce never made decisions impulsively. He studied environments the way a strategist studies terrain. He watched how fighters interacted, who listened, who interrupted, who led with discipline and who led with ego. He noted footwork patterns from across the room without staring, the way weight shifted on pivots, the timing between combinations, the rhythm of breathing during sparring. His eyes missed nothing, yet his body remained relaxed, unassuming. That was the paradox of Bruce Lee: stillness without passivity, silence without submission. Throughout that week, he had occasionally joined light training sessions, moving fluidly enough to spark curiosity but never enough to reveal depth. He kept exchanges short, technical, educational, and when he wasn't training, he helped. When the gym's janitor struggled with a heavy equipment cart, Bruce lifted it without comment. When the front desk needed organizing, he stacked papers. When the owner mentioned staffing shortages, Bruce offered to clean. Not for show, for principle. Bruce had long believed that humility was not a performance. It was discipline. Years earlier, when opening his own schools, he had mopped floors beside his students, scrubbed bathrooms, wiped down mirrors after class. He never saw service as lowering oneself. He saw arrogance as the real degradation. A martial artist who could not clean a floor without complaint could not master himself. And self-mastery, to Bruce, was the highest form of combat. On this particular Tuesday, the regular janitor had called in sick. The owner mentioned it casually, irritated at the timing. "He'll handle it," Bruce said. He took the mop without ceremony. As he worked near the entrance, he listened. Tommy Morrison's voice carried easily across the gym, loud, confident, edged with something sharp. Commands disguised as suggestions, corrections that felt more like declarations. Bruce didn't look up immediately, but he heard the tone. He had encountered it many times before, fighters who confused aggression with authority, men who believed victory validated character. Bruce moved the mop in smooth arcs across the floor, his grip relaxed. His posture is upright but effortless. Even cleaning, there was structure in his movement. Weight distributed evenly through the feet, knees soft, spine aligned. Each step is economical, no wasted energy, no unnecessary tension. If someone had truly understood body mechanics, they would have noticed. They would have seen the coiled efficiency in his forearms, the subtle spring loaded in his stance, the way his balance never shifted too far in any direction. But Tommy Morrison was not looking for such details. Tommy measured strength in volume, heavy punches, raised voices, visible muscle. Bruce measured strength in control. Across the room, Tommy's gloves slammed into leather. Thud, thud, thud. Each strike loud enough to announce itself. Bruce's movements made no sound at all. That contrast, noise and silence, hung in the air like two opposing philosophies sharing the same oxygen. One built on domination, the other built on awareness. As Bruce passed near the ring corner, he briefly glanced upward. Tommy was shadowboxing between rounds, chin high, shoulders rolling dramatically. A performance layered over technique. Bruce's eyes lingered for half a second, long enough to assess timing, reach, breathing pattern. Long enough to understand everything he needed to know. Then he returned to the floor. To anyone watching, he was just a janitor finishing his task. But beneath the quiet surface was calculation. He had seen arrogance before. He knew its patterns. And he understood something Tommy did not. The loudest man in the room is rarely the most dangerous.
Sometimes the most dangerous person is the one holding the mop.
The rhythm of the heavy bag slowed. Tommy Morrison ripped off his gloves with exaggerated force, tossing them onto the bench as if dismissing an opponent who had already fallen. Sweat glistened across his shoulders. His breathing was loud, theatrical. He turned, and that's when he saw the small man near the ring apron. The mop, the bucket, the quiet posture. Tommy smirked. "Hey!" he called out, voice sharp enough to cut across the room. "Janitor." A few heads turned. Bruce didn't react immediately. He continued wringing the mop with controlled pressure, water spiraling back into the bucket in clean rings. Tommy stepped closer. "I'm talking to you." Now Bruce looked up. His expression wasn't irritated, not defensive, not submissive, simply attentive. Tommy walked right up to him, towering over him by several inches. The size difference was obvious, intentional. "You missed a spot," Tommy said, nudging the floor lightly with his boot. "Right there." Bruce's eyes followed the gesture. The floor was spotless. Still, he moved the mop across the area without argument. A few gym members exchanged glances. The air had shifted, something uncomfortable forming between spectacle and cruelty. Tommy wasn't done. "While you're at it," he added, lifting one foot onto the ring step, "these boots could use a shine." The room went quieter. It wasn't playful. It wasn't joking. It was a performance. Tommy wanted an audience. Bruce's gaze dropped briefly to the boots, then back to Tommy's face. "No," he said calmly. The word landed softly, but it landed. Tommy blinked. "What did you say?" Bruce set the mop upright against the wall. His movements were unhurried, almost gentle. "I said no." A few people shifted where they stood. The owner froze near the front desk. No one intervened. Tommy let out a short laugh, disbelieving. "You mop floors for a living," he said louder now, making sure the room heard him. "You don't get to say no." Bruce held his ground. His posture hadn't changed. Shoulders relaxed. Chin neutral. "I clean because it needs cleaning," he replied evenly. "Not because I belong beneath anyone." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Tommy stepped closer, close enough that their chests were only inches apart. "You think you're something?" Tommy asked. "You think because you talk calm you're tough?" Bruce didn't answer. Tommy grabbed the nearby water jug from the ring corner. Without hesitation, he tipped it forward. Cold water poured over Bruce's shoulder and down his shirt. The splash echoed in the sudden silence. No one laughed. No one moved. Droplets hit the mat in slow taps. Bruce stood still. Water dripped from his sleeves, from his chin. Onto the floor he had just cleaned. His breathing remained steady. Inside, however, something shifted. Not anger, decision. He lifted his hand and brushed the water from his eyes. His gaze met Tommy's, not heated, not flaring. Measured. "You're done?" Bruce asked quietly. Tommy spread his arms slightly, inviting the room to admire the humiliation. "Or what?" Bruce glanced at the ring, then back at Tommy. "If you'd like to continue," he said, "we can step inside." There was no bravado in his tone. No raised volume. Just an invitation. Tommy's grin widened. He looked around at the onlookers, feeding off their attention. "You?" he scoffed. "You want a round?" Bruce removed his wet shirt slowly and folded it with precise care, placing it over the bucket handle. Underneath, his physique was lean, not bulky, not imposing, but defined in a way that suggested density rather than size. Several members noticed. Tommy noticed too, though he disguised it with another smirk.
"Fine," Tommy said, cracking his neck.
"You'll give the janitor a lesson." Bruce stepped toward the ring steps. No rush, no tension, just deliberate motion. The gym felt smaller now, compressed by anticipation. Tommy climbed through the ropes first, bouncing lightly on his feet, playing to the invisible cameras in his mind. Bruce followed. As he stepped between the ropes, the room fell completely silent. The mop remained against the wall. The bucket is untouched. And for the first time that afternoon, Tommy Morrison stopped smiling. The ropes creaked as both men took their corners. No announcer. No bell. No cameras. Just 30 witnesses pressed against sweat-stained walls, holding their breath. The air felt dense. Charged. Tommy Morrison rolled his shoulders and bounced twice on the balls of his feet. His confidence had returned the moment he stepped into the ring. This was his domain, his canvas, his audience. Across from him, Bruce Lee stood almost motionless. Hands relaxed, elbows closed, weight centered, no dramatic guard, no bouncing, no intimidation ritual, just alignment. "Ready?" Tommy asked, smirking. Bruce gave a slight nod. Tommy didn't wait. He exploded forward with a textbook aggressive opening left jab to measure distance, right cross loaded with full hip rotation. The cross wasn't a probe, it was a statement. His shoulder torque was heavy, committing weight through the rear leg. Bruce shifted half an inch, not back, not sideways, just enough to let the punch pass through empty air. Tommy followed immediately with a left hook, wide arc, aiming for the jawline. His mistake wasn't power, it was overcommitment. The hook carried too much shoulder, too much intention. Bruce pivoted subtly on his lead foot. The hook cut past him again. 3 seconds. Tommy adjusted fast. He threw a combination now jab, cross, hook, body shot. A 4-strike burst designed to overwhelm. The gym echoed with the sound of gloves slicing wind. Bruce's feet barely left their position. He wasn't retreating. He was economizing. Each movement measured in inches. Micro-angles, minimal displacement. His spine remained upright, chin tucked naturally without strain. His breathing is steady. Tommy's fourth punch hit nothing but space. 5 seconds. Frustration flashed across Tommy's face. He stepped in deeper, closing distance aggressively, abandoning setup for force. A looping overhand right came down with full body weight behind it, the kind of punch that ends fights. Bruce stepped inside the arc. Not away. Inside. 7 seconds had passed. From the outside, it looked like nothing had happened. No counter-strikes. No dramatic exchanges. But positioning had shifted completely. Tommy's weight was forward. His balance extended. His center line was exposed. Bruce's right fist rose, not chambered, not drawn back, just lifted. Distance between his knuckles and Tommy's chest. Less than 2 inches. There was no wind-up. No visible torque. Just a short contraction through the legs. A sudden release from the hips. A ripple through the spine, precise kinetic sequencing compressed into a fragment of time. The 1-inch punch landed. The sound was dull, dense, like a hammer striking packed sand. Tommy's body reacted before his brain did. His eyes widened. Air vanished from his lungs. His feet left the canvas for a split second, not from theatrical force but from structural disruption. His spine recoiled. His nervous system overloaded. Then gravity claimed him. He collapsed backward onto the mat, the impact echoing louder than any punch thrown that day. Silence swallowed the gym. Bruce stepped back immediately. No follow-up, no pose, no celebration. Tommy tried to inhale. Nothing came. He rolled to his side, coughing violently, confusion flooding his expression. He had been hit harder before, but never like that. From ringside, Eddie stared in disbelief, his mouth slightly open. He replayed the sequence in his mind, searching for what had missed. There had been no swing, no visible acceleration, just contact me. Get up, someone whispered. Tommy attempted to push himself upright. His arms trembled. His core wouldn't respond. Bruce stood calmly a few feet away, hands lowered again, breathing unchanged, clinical, precise, finished. In less than 10 seconds, everything had changed. No one moved for several seconds. The gym, once loud with impact and ego, now felt like a cathedral after confession. Tommy Morrison finally managed a full breath. Pain radiated through his chest, not sharp, but humbling. Structural, as if something deeper than muscle had been struck. Across the ring, Bruce Lee didn't wait for applause. He stepped through the ropes the same way he had entered, without drama. He walked to the corner, picked up his folded shirt, put it back on. Then he returned to the wall where the mop rested. The small sound of bristles against canvas broke the silence. Tommy pushed himself upright, slower this time. His eyes followed Bruce's confusion, giving way to understanding. "You could've," Tommy started, then stopped. Bruce continued mopping. "You could've hurt me worse." Bruce paused just long enough to respond. "Pride is the enemy," he said calmly, "not your opponent." The words weren't delivered as a lecture. They were offered as fact. Tommy stepped out of the ring. The arrogance that had filled the room earlier was gone. What remained was something quieter, more honest. "I was wrong," he said, voice low enough that only those nearby heard it clearly. "I didn't know who you were." Bruce resumed his rhythm. "That's not the point," he replied. And it wasn't. Respect to Bruce was not based on reputation, not on titles, not on size. It was based on awareness. After a moment, Bruce leaned the mop against the wall once more. "If you want to learn," he said, meeting Tommy's eyes, "come to Chinatown tomorrow morning." An address followed, no sales pitch. No humiliation returned, just an invitation. In the weeks that followed, Tommy did go. The training was different than anything he had known. Less noise, more precision. Less domination, more discipline. Foundations rebuilt from stance to breathe. Ego stripped. Structure restored. Years later, those who trained in Los Angeles martial arts circles would tell the story. Not about the knockout, but about the mop. About the moment a man mistook humility for weakness and discovered that true mastery rarely announces itself. Some lessons echo louder than punches, and some victories never require a raised voice.